Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 70 of UncommonCents. Dean Holmes running a solo event today due to Craig Kouimanis' ever-growing social and business calendars. So thought I'd spend a little bit of time talking about a couple of things that I often talk about with clients as well as advisors when I work with them. And that is a bit of a technology discussion or a technology rant to get everyone ready and thinking about some of the important things that you might say, I wish I had known earlier when I start to think about how I might organize my technology, where data and audio and video may be placed in the future. So the first place that I thought that I would start this conversation is that I want to start with firstly saying hello to everyone that is following online on LinkedIn Live. If you are that one person that watches every week, please feel free to put a chat in underneath the event and contribute and participate most definitely in the conversation. So firstly, I wanted to touch on Microsoft overall, just to give everyone a bit of an idea how I think about the Microsoft suite and also the power of it, even though we may not be fully utilizing it at this point in time. So the call out, firstly, in relation to this is just to go through and share a couple of the names of the applications that we use within the Microsoft world, just to make sure that you're all aware of them, but also using them at any point in time. So anyone that has an Office 365 logon, which will be literally everyone that I'm talking to today, you can always go into Office 365 and look at all the applications. Now, these are all included within your subscription. So it's a good idea to always think about, does Microsoft do it, before going down the path of looking at a bright, shiny toy of an alternative? Because whilst that alternative might be slightly better, you're losing the integration benefits, which I think over time are actually going to be more important than the one feature that you think that you need and you can't do anything about. And so first and foremost, we know that Microsoft 365 is an email server. So I won't spend a lot of time on this. But what I will call out is making sure that you've got at least Microsoft Business 365 packages. It's less than $40 a month per human, but that's business grade email that you can set up with your IT companies, and you will have as good of email as what large listed companies would have, because they're using the same systems. And so we need some of this, the junk mail filters and the other filters going across the top of our email, and you get that with Business Premium at a minimum. But just because you bought it doesn't mean it's set up. So the second part of that is to make sure that we've got it set up. So everyone knows Microsoft and Outlook, most definitely. Second thing, in terms of part of the Microsoft suite that everyone seems to be talking about is OneDrive and SharePoint. So it comes to, where do we save the Word document or the PDF from a particular client? And so we've always got these two options within the Microsoft world of SharePoint and OneDrive. There's a couple of differences that I would see and call out in and around this. Is first and foremost, SharePoint is a centralized location of all the data. So it's not having files stored in different humans' OneDrive. It actually has a separate location called a shared library, which you can access, anyone can access, and you can control the permissions around that really well. So I'm a fan of thinking through, how do we use SharePoint to store all of our, say, client files or files in general, and then using the libraries as a way of separating data between people. So when we get to Copilot and Access, I'll share a little bit more about this, but it's really important to be thinking about how you're setting up the libraries in order to think about who should have access to what data within your system. SharePoint also has a lot more power over time. Won't have this out of the box, but in terms of setting metadata on files, which is just like Instagram hashtags to describe the type of file or the client that it might be associated with, much better than just a file name. And then secondly, pardon me, Copilot is going to be starting to be sitting across, yes, SharePoint and OneDrive, but the fact that we've got all the files available in SharePoint is the Pardon me, Craig would have normally taken over when I've got a cough. But as I'm solo, you just have to listen to the pause while I have a quick drink. So I think first and foremost, we're using the email in SharePoint in Microsoft Suite. We're obviously using OneDrive or SharePoint. I'd really like you to think about how SharePoint might be a better solution over time for the vast majority of your data storage. Next thing that gets often used, I'm not going to talk about Microsoft Excel. If you need an Excel help, Paul Barrett will solve everything you have with a spreadsheet. But Microsoft Bookings exists within the suite as well. Now, it may not be as good as Calendly. I've even tested the two. One of the businesses I work with still uses Calendly. But what I would encourage you to do is think about whether you can use Bookings as your first consideration before wondering and then going to pay for an additional service if you don't desperately need those features. So Microsoft Booking can do great email confirmations, great follow-ups now. You can do multiple humans in a calendar, so you can look for that across your Microsoft calendars. Pretty soon, it's going to be able to send text message confirmations if it can't do it today. And so all of the features that alternatives may have, Microsoft will catch up if they're not already ahead. But the fact is you're already paying for it anyway. So I'd love you to see if you can use that as well. A couple of the others that come as part of the solution is there's obviously Microsoft Stream. Now, this is an interesting one because this is where the Microsoft version hasn't yet caught up to some of the other competitors, which I'll touch on. However, Microsoft Stream is your YouTube internally, for want of a better explanation, of all your video files. So every Teams meeting that you record, it essentially can be rewatched and replayed through Microsoft Stream. It also has some features that are very similar to Loom, if you've used Loom, in terms of sending quick short form videos to clients and screen sharing. In this particular case, Loom is still better, in my opinion, than Stream. And so that's one of the ones where I'm more happy to pay for Loom because Stream hasn't caught up yet. However, the moment it does catch up, it's something that we would obviously drop and use Stream more and more. Now, what Stream does bring you for those Copilot users is Stream does allow you to run the Copilot summaries through Stream to actually ask the video or the transcript questions off the meeting summary. So definitely Stream is still a core part of the client interactions, and then using Copilot as well. Obviously, Microsoft Teams, I just hinted on there. There are alternatives to Teams. Most definitely, the most famous would be Slack. I suppose the same call out in terms of consistency is your one database and your one subscription brings you Microsoft Teams as well. I'm encouraging all advisors to be recording Teams meetings, even if you're not using AI today. If you have the recording today, you'll be able to use AI in the future. If you don't hit record today, you'll never be able to start to leverage AI in the future. So at a bare minimum, record the meetings, record them through Teams, record them through your phone, and start to get them into a central filing place, i.e. SharePoint for your clients, so you can do things with them in the future. So Microsoft Teams is a communication tool internally, obviously the meeting tool as well, but it's also starting to bring together a lot of the other apps into one interface. So you can connect to Planner, connect to Copilot, as well as Excel and your documents, all through Teams as well. There may be, even in the future, a client version of Teams, such that you can actually communicate really quickly and easily with your clients through having a Teams app and a client having a Teams app. It doesn't completely exist today. A couple of other things that come free as part of the software. There's a program called Clipchamp. Clipchamp does your video editing for you in the cloud. So you can record a video like this today. We might want to change it around or cut it into some parts. You can quickly and easily upload any video into Clipchamp, edit it, put logos, put pictures, whatever you want to do there. There's obviously lots of paid versions, but you can do it quickly and easily with that as well. Seeing that happening a lot. Next thing on the list is Power Automate. So this is where we're starting to see, if I call it, the robots coming in to actually start to automate some processes. So Power Automate breaks down into two parts. You can create your own online automation. So an example of this, albeit very simple, is I can create an automation to send an email every 30 days to anyone I'd like to do so, and then send a follow-up email 5 days after the 30 days through an automation. And so we're able to do that as a simple example and more complicated automations. But you can do these at a business level if you need to remind yourself or your team of, funnily enough, voting for Employee of the Month as one example. Why remind someone to do that each and every month when you can create a Power Automate to send that email to your team every single month on the 28th of the month, for example, and they'll be able to action it. So Power Automate is really powerful. Second element of Power Automate, which might be useful for some businesses that are doing repetitive work, is you can use Power Automate to train desktop interaction as well. So moving data from column A to column B as the example, you can train your Power Automate to do those type of things as well. So there's tasks that today you could think about automating within your business to save the minutes. And I'm a really big fan of saving 1 or 2 minutes each and every day by making one of these automated processes, as opposed to trying to remember to do all of them together. So that's Power Automate. Last one that I'll talk about is there's a bit of an interaction between a Teams recording, Microsoft To-Do or To-Do list, and Microsoft Planner. So these three apps are working together in the background. Once again, another really good advantage of using one system and having it integrated. There today, if I have a meeting with team members that are also within my Office 365 environment, that can be recorded. Microsoft knows each and every user that's on that call because of our voice ID as well as our username. Those two combinations are now through Microsoft Teams setting up action items. So you can see a live action item list during a meeting that's being recorded with Copilot. And those action items are going on to individual users' to-do lists at the back end of the system. And so it's not going to replace Xplan and your workflow management, but in order to have a meaningful meeting with your team members where there's action items handed out, the idea that they're recorded, they're automatically allocated and checked during the meeting process, and they sit on people's to-dos, which they'll get reminders to do as a result. So that's a really big part of the Microsoft suite overall in terms of using the system. So moving on to some of the alternatives, obviously the alternatives in terms of data storage, everyone will know that there's a Dropbox, a Box, a Google Drive, as well as probably a fair few others in relation to the data storage. And so those competitors are all able to do something similar to OneDrive, not necessarily similar to SharePoint. And so as we move along this path, what I want us to think about more importantly than where that data is stored is how is AI reading that data? So the example in terms of the Microsoft world is that AI can read emails and files because they're all within this one Microsoft environment, which I think they call Microsoft Fabric, but it's beyond my scope. But they can read it because it's all in one. If you have data in 2 or 3 different places, i.e. you store all your files in OneDrive, in Dropbox, and then your emails are in Microsoft, when you go to use an AI tool, it's not going to be able to easily look in those 2 places to analyze that data. And so the decisions that we're making around data storage now is all about what AI and how can the AI read the data. So everything that's sitting within the Microsoft environment that you have access to, your AI can look at it, or your Copilot can look at that. If I had all my client files in Dropbox and everything else in the Microsoft world, and I was looking to do something in the Microsoft world, it just wouldn't have the context of those files, which I'll share in a moment. Secondly, there is a need to be aware of what geographical location your data is stored between Google and OneDrive and Dropbox and SharePoint. There's all the back end analysis that we need to be clear and comfortable with where the data is stored. So I know with Microsoft, for example, and you need to check this with the other providers, that we can geographically choose to have our data stored in Australia on the Australian Microsoft services versus potentially with Google and Dropbox. Unless you're opting into those high premium versions, your data may be spread across the world, which if you read some of the privacy principles of the Australian government, we need to be much more aware of where the data is saved. Obviously, a tech rant as mine is happening today, we can't go past Copilot and AI. So there's a variety of different AI engines that are happening in terms of what's available out there. A couple of things that I've hinted at, which I'll reiterate through this process, is first and foremost, AI is really useful, but it's incredibly useful once you give it your context, which is your data. So getting access to company data makes these Copilot engines, specifically Copilot and others that get access to the data, much more powerful. But we need to be really clear on how we're giving that data, the AI access to your data and therefore your client's data. And so Microsoft Copilot through Microsoft 365 licensing does two things. One, they're borrowing through their relationship with OpenAI, they're getting the AI engine, then they're recoding it to Microsoft standards. So that means that they're slower to market, but they're making sure they're following Microsoft's responsible AI rules. And then they're allowing it to use your company data only for yourself. Your data is not being used to train the model at all. And this is the big thing, that the moment you type anything into a public, typically free AI engine, you're actually training that AI engine. There was some really interesting things that happened when the I think Deep Blue, the Chinese AI came out, and they actually released all of the searches that were done within the first 24 hours, obviously because of a hack. And it was really interesting what was actually going into the AI without any consideration as to whether that question would be everly publicly available. And so what I'm a fan of first and foremost is making sure that we're choosing the right AIs. And so for people that I'm talking to, that's always the Microsoft Copilot, because one, we've got Microsoft doing their work over the top of OpenAI. And two, they're very strict in terms of our data is not being used to train the model in any way. And as I'm kind of reiterating here, is that the importance is the AI can see your data. So don't think that the competitor is going to do something better if they don't have the broader context of your entire database. So what success have we had with AI is that with Copilot, we're having really good success in terms of recording client meetings and producing a variety of action items and summaries off the back of those meetings. Now, that can be a client summary email about what the meeting was about. It can be a full meeting summary. It can be a compliance file note. And we're heading towards being able to do a version of a paraplanning request off the back of a meeting, because you can pull multiple data sources in when you start to use Microsoft Copilot. So a case study that we're working towards at the moment is the client and the advisor have the meeting. So we get that transcript. In our database, we've got access to the AFSL policies and procedures. So we pull that in. In that database, we also pull in an audio summary from the advisor. That's where the advisor is actually telling the pretend paraplanner, telling the AI the products and everything that they want to recommend. So that's a short 5-minute video. So we take the client summary, which is their situation, the policy library, the 5-minute summary from the advisor, and then finally the templates in relation to making the paraplanning request form. And we let the AI do the first draft of the paraplanning request form. It's also starting to do fee calculations in terms of products. It's never going to be perfect, but what we want to be doing is speeding up the process from the end of the client meeting, the ideas getting out of the advisor's head, and then the paraplanning process starting. My thing is all about advisors need to be in client meetings. So as a result of that, if we can get a meeting and within 10 minutes of the meeting ending, the advisor has dictated what they want in their paraplanning request, and then we let the AI actually pull in all the other parts to do a draft and a summary to the admin team, we're speeding up as a result. So that is only possible because all the pieces of the puzzle are in one place. I don't own Microsoft shares directly. Obviously, my self-managed super fund does in an index, not directly. So that's kind of like the AI. So continue to be aware of where access to information is your first step in AI. Second thing is, obviously, as I said before, just record the meeting to get the data. Even if you don't know how to use it today, you've got the data. So this is early on, everyone was frustrated that it wasn't producing this perfect AI summary. But because you recorded the meeting a year ago, you can go back and ask the current AI technology to summarize the meeting that you had a year ago, and it will produce today's quality summary of that meeting, not a year ago summary of the meeting. And so the important thing there, as I keep saying, is recording the meeting will let you do things in 2 years' time on the transcript and audio of today that may not even exist today. So a couple of things to change track a little bit, just in the final part of my rant, is two things in relation to cybersecurity and data and data backups. So I call out to Fraser Jack, who may or may not be watching, but I'll tag him on the video. We've been doing the Cyber Collective's cyber discussions and training over the last 8 weeks, as well as getting the team going through their learning process as well. A couple of things that are really interesting to call out is firstly around the backup. So Office 365 is not a backup. It doesn't provide a backup, even though it provides version control. And so what's really important here is that you actually have a backup that is separate from your Microsoft environment. So every single 3 times a day, in terms of some of our examples, there's a snapshot taken of Teams, Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., and put across onto a third-party server, which is a backup service. It's completely automated, and they take 3 backups a day. Now, if something happened to our Microsoft 365 environment, you can start up a new tenant and then quickly and easily restore from the backup. Second thing that we talked about with Fraser is actually testing that assumption, which is a requirement as you go through the cyber checklist. But first and foremost, we need to have that external backup. Otherwise, if our account was compromised in any way, Microsoft are not promising at all to provide a backup of your data in any way. So we need to be acutely aware of that and be making some external backups. And the next thing, just to conclude in and around, is some of these cyber lessons that we're having as we're going through Fraser Jack's work in terms of the Cyber Collective, is just being aware of when systems, we think our IT guys are helping us, which they absolutely are, but sometimes things go wrong and we're not completely aware of this. And so a couple of examples that I wanted to share, because it became really interesting about whose responsibility was it. So we found that we had a machine that just wasn't on the support plan. And so that's quite an interesting thing, because anyone could buy a laptop today, take it home, open it up, and actually log into their Office 365 environment and start working. And so you could do that. But what you don't have as a result of that is you don't have the software that will manage all the patches and updates, as well as the virus protection and things like that. And so we had a situation where we just found out that one of the machines weren't connected. So the staff member was connected and doing their work, but they weren't actually having the computer kept up to date. And so what we learned through that process is making sure that you're always matching how many computers you physically have in your business and how many computers you think your IT company thinks you have in your business, and checking that at all points in time. Second thing we're really interested in calling out is being aware of the chance of being hacked, both at a client level and a business level, using the IT company as a trick. So we talk about this example whereby I can go onto any IT company's website today and read testimonials. And what I can do from that, and this is relevant for clients too, the moment I read a testimonial, I can call that company and say, "Hi, it's Dean Holmes calling from XYZ IT firm. I need to get access to the boss's computer. And because I know the name of the company, there's a likelihood that I might get put through to the boss. And because the boss is busy, I might be able to compromise their machine. And so what we're trying to think through, and this is the bubble that we might leave with everyone, is that how do you have multi-factor authentication when someone calls you? So what is it that you can check about the person that's calling you to make sure they are calling from the company that you're saying? And so anyone could pretend to be from the IT company, for example, just like someone can go onto your financial planning website, read your testimonials, and then try to contact that client as well. A bit harder because you may not have their phone number details, but we need to be aware of how external people may be trying to attack us from that hacking perspective just by following what might be a standard procedure. And so the cybersecurity requirements of making sure that machines are locked down. Frankly, there's a last program that I'll mention of Microsoft is called Intune. Large corporates have this, which is the ability to delete and wipe iPhones, iPads, and computers if they're lost at all. And so this is a really big requirement, as if you look at the ASIC cybersecurity, this is the outcome. We need to be able to control client data at all times. And so therefore you can only allow machines into your client data that have Intune installed, which means you can remotely wipe those devices or lock them and reset them if they're lost at all. And so play everyone's homework that's watching live and obviously later on is play the homework of going, how would I delete the data off my phone if I lost my phone? Okay. And so talk to your IT company about that first and foremost, and then make sure you've got that ability through Intune in the Microsoft world to delete it anyway. And how do we do this over time is actually getting back to having two devices or a personal and private world. So lots of us, especially in the small business world, use our business email for personal. And so I'm having to ask people to stop that activity because it's actually putting the companies at risk as they're doing that, because they're letting personal stuff come into their business inbox, which fills that inbox, but also means that they're actually more likely to get attacked on personal things in their work email. And so have a think about how you might start to separate your business world. Technology on your business machine is separate from your personal world. Although we all work from home and work 24/7, we need to be starting to think about how we separate and lock down our work environment that has access to client data and potentially just be different, still locked down on your personal data. So that's your homework. See if you can delete your phone remotely, and then even test your IT company with maybe not your primary device, but a test one. Text your IT company and say, I've just lost my iPhone. Can you please delete it? Remove it from the client data, and see if they actually have a process around that and what you would actually do. So that was episode 70 of Uncommon Sense. I know there's some listeners out here that are listening from the comfort of their bed or comfort of Brisbane for Mr. Kouimanis. So thanks for listening to episode 70. Craig promises he's back next fortnight. If you listen to this episode and you have any questions, put them on the chat of the comments of the episode or message me on LinkedIn. Happy to give you some of the resources and guides that I've built in and around this to keep this front of mind, because it's really important for us all. Thanks. Talk soon. Bye-bye.